Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack make it backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews how I vanished. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
The horrific crimes took place in 1994. As you can see in this video, Hall is very young, but at the time of his death, he was 49 years old. Looking at him now, I can tell you he had gray hairs and a beard. That's something that you wouldn't see in his previous mugshots.
Hey, we back on MOBB business. Shit got Popalot. We in Texas, city of Irving. I'm sure it's our first time around here. Now today, I'm gonna do my best to tell you guys the story of a guy by the name of Orlando Hall. We're gonna talk about a series of calculated decisions that Orlando Hall would make in late September of 1994 that would end up costing him his life in 2020.
Now, when asked if he had a final statement with tears in his eyes, he said an Islamic prayer and then said, "I invite everyone to Islam. Thank you for giving me the opportunity for forgiveness."
Orlando Hall is one of 5 men convicted in this case. Court records show Hall gave $4,700 to the brothers of the victim in exchange for marijuana with the expectation of getting the drugs later in the day. Well, the brothers then claimed their car and the money were stolen. Hall and 3 others with him didn't believe the brothers and then went to their Arlington apartment. 16-year-old Lisa Renee was there alone and was kidnapped.
There were the pleas from the family. This one from Lisa Renee's brother Neil.
I just want them to bring her home.
Hours later, he helped put up flyers, hoping someone would see Lisa's picture and his sister would be found safe. Arlington police say all the while, 18-year-old Neil and older brother Stan Vitalis knew who had kidnapped their sister.
It is apparently a result of a marijuana deal that was done at a later date in which Neil and Stanfield allegedly failed to produce 5 pounds of marijuana.
Who are you?
Police say retaliation for the drug deal came Saturday night when Lisa was kidnapped. Her screams were recorded as she called a 911 operator for help. The only leads police had were 3 men in camouflage and a brown Cadillac, and the knowledge of Renee and Vitalis's drug arrests in Irving back in August.
We had a lot of information coming in that they were involved in drug trafficking and in drug trade. We repeatedly and continually asked them that, and we repeatedly continually asked them to help us if that was the case. Why it finally came to the point where they felt like it was time to tell us, I don't know.
Police say it was the brothers who found the brown Cadillac and who gave them the name of one of the suspects, Stephen Beckley. Late last night, police say the brothers finally gave them the complete story, a tale of drugs and retaliation that stretches from Irving into Arlington and ends in El Dorado, Arkansas. That's where 2 suspects, this man, 19-year-old Demetrius Hall, and 22-year-old Stephen Beckley from Irving, were arrested, and where police continue to search for a 3rd suspect, Orlando Hall. Police also seized several cars, including Beckley's. As for Lisa Renee,
the whereabouts or the condition of Lisa Renee is still unknown.
The jury sentenced the first man to death under federal law in more than 30 years.
That's what a federal jury is deciding right now in the Orlando Hall murder and kidnapping trial. The jury will decide if Hall gets life in prison or sentenced to death for the murder of Lisa Renee. 11 News reporter Angela Hale is covering the trial. She joins us from the federal courthouse in Fort Worth. Angela, how long has the jury been deliberating?
Well, Jerry, the jury has been deliberating for just 45 minutes. They have not reached a decision in this case, but when they do, and if they decide to sentence Orlando Hall to death, it will be a history-making case. Hall would be the first man to be put on death row in more than 3 decades. Lisa Renee was just 16 years old, an honors student studying on a Saturday night when she was kidnapped from her Arlington apartment. Her frantic 911 call caught on tape.
Go to FBI, ma'am. What's going on?
Today, prosecutors in their closing arguments paint 24-year-old Orlando Hall as a disgusting and vile human being who deserves to be executed. They say Hall was the ringleader of a group of men who dragged Lisa Renee out of her house, repeatedly raped her, sodomized her, drove her to Arkansas, raped her again, sodomized her again, beat her over the head with a shovel and poured gasoline over her naked body, then buried her alive in a shallow grave. But defense attorneys pleaded with the jury to give Hall life in prison, not death. They asked the jury, do you want Orlando Hall's blood on your hands? Defense attorney said that Orlando Hall should be spared from his life because he has 4 kids, but prosecutors, in a compelling closing statement, read a poem. They said Lisa Renee will never be able to have kids. He said, oh, mother, I'll never be able to graduate from college. Her father will never be able to babysit with her, and her sister will never be able to ask her to be in her wedding. Lisa Renee's life was taken away, and they believe Orlando Hall should pay the ultimate price.
Angela, before you go, how long will they go tonight, and what are their plans for the weekend?
Well, they haven't decided exactly how long they'll go tonight. They could go into the night, but the judge says that he wants to bring them back tomorrow. He does not want them deliberating next Tuesday, which would be the next day, because he says there's too much pretrial publicity in this case. He wants a decision, and the jury is set to go forward tonight. We don't know how long, though, but we'll keep you up to date.
Angela Hale, thanks. Live from Fort Worth.
New this morning, the U.S. carried out its 8th execution at the federal prison in Terre Haute. After a delay, Orlando Hall was put to death late last night. Officials say he kidnapped and raped a 16-year-old girl from Texas. That's before dousing her in gasoline and burying her alive.
Talking about going out bad. That shit got Popalot. We back on MOBB business. We headed to Texas with it. Meet us in the city of Irving. But Arkansas is in the mix too, as the story got ties to Pine Bluff and El Dorado. So today I'm going to be telling you the story of a guy by the name of Orlando Hall, but I can't really tell the story without talking about another guy by the name of Bruce Weber, Orlando Hall's brother Demetrius Hall, another guy by the name of Stephen Beckley, and also a gentleman by the name of Marvin Holloway. But I'm really not going to talk about the crime itself as you've seen it. I'm going to talk more of the cause of the crime and really try to detail where these guys went all wrong. And in the end, it will have them turning on each other, with one brother testifying against another brother and that other brother receiving a death sentence. Now, the story is going to be set in the mid-90s. And if anybody remember that time, it's going to be the emergence of crack when it was ravishing a lot of the big cities. But Orlando Hall, along with Marvin Holloway and Bruce Weber, would be running a marijuana trafficking operation that would bring weed from Texas to Arkansas. And where Stephen Beckley comes into play, he would be the guy arranging these marijuana deals. And he would specifically look for dealers in or around Dallas or the Fort Worth area. After the marijuana would be purchased, Stephen Beckley would transport the drugs from Texas to Pine Bluff, where the marijuana would then be handed off to Marvin Holloway to be stashed in a safe house. Now, I can't say how long specifically this operation was working for the gentleman, but on September 21st, 1994, things would go tragically wrong. Now, instead of following a regular routine, Orlando would fly to Texas for a drug deal where he would be picked up by his younger brother Demetrius and Stephen Beckley. Now, I'm not quite sure if they didn't stick to the script, but on this day, Orlando would meet 2 drug dealers, stepbrothers Neil Renee and Stanville Vitalis. He would hand the 2 over $4,700 with the expectation of them bringing a large sum of marijuana back. I know this 1994, but some of y'all still doing this. Now, after hours without the brothers returning with the marijuana, Orlando Hall would proceed to call the 2, where they would go on to explain to him that they had been robbed and the $4,700 along with their car had been taken. Now, not exactly quite sure how, with this being 1994, but Orlando Hall did probably the only smart thing that he did that day. He would track that phone number that he'd been contacting the brothers on, where it would lead him to an address in Arlington, Texas. Using that information, Demetrius Hall and Stephen Beckley would drive to the address where they would see the two brothers exiting the vehicle that they supposedly had been robbed for. Now, a few people, including his brother, at trial would testify that Orlando would state that I'm not going back to Arkansas unless I got my money or my drugs or some blood on my hands. Now, a lot of people probably going to say that he had the right idea, but he ended up with the wrong blood on his hands. And after you really process all the information, you would really think it was a spur-of-the-moment decision that they made, but they would sit on that information for about 3 days. And really, it was a lot of probably different ways that they could handle the situation. They probably picked the worst scenario possible, as they would make the case federal during the kidnapping when they would take the girl from Texas to Arkansas, leading to that federal death penalty that Orlando Hall would end up receiving 20 years after the crime that he would commit. And I know everybody heard the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. Well, no bad deed goes unpunished as well, as Lisa Renee's brothers, Neil Renee and Stanville Vitalis, would be indicted a year later on a crack conspiracy. So it could easily be said that this high-profile kidnapping, once the information came out that the brothers was doing drugs, put them on the radar and ended up with them having to deal with the federal government, as well as losing a sister. So, man, this is an episode of choices on both sides, as no matter how you look at this, you got to sum it up as a tragedy, because the stepbrothers lost their sister, and Orlando Hall had to pay with his life. And like I spoke on earlier, his brother would be one of the people that testified on him that will result in him getting that sentence. So to anybody tuned in or listening, if y'all didn't take in anything I said, take this. Don't make mistakes, make choices, because you're going to have to pay for them one way or the other. Now, y'all make sure y'all hit the red subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all getting the comment box flooded. Let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we missed, what we got wrong, what gangsters we haven't covered, what we need to talk about next on the channel. Y'all definitely make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And y'all already know the rules. We're going to be back with some more real trill spill shit ASAP. Shit got Popalot. Mob Gang.